Well, folks, what a difference a few days makes. All the snow is gone. Yes. Yes. Okay, now we can get back to work out here. And actually, I got back to work on the boat yesterday. I remade these pieces right here for the front of the boat, for the bow. And if you recall, in one of the previous videos, I had made a couple of pieces to go up front here on the bow. And I decided to remake them because, you know, sometimes you make a part for a project and you look at it and it just doesn't look right. And when I got finished with those, they just didn't look right for some reason. So I decided to go ahead and remake them. Let me show you what I did. Made a couple of little changes to the design there. Now this angle right here, this didn't change because that's the part that's going to attach to the center keel beam. But over here, as you can see, I did decrease this angle right here just a little bit, or increased it, depends on your perspective, I guess. But I changed this angle here. And as you can see, it doesn't tuck in quite so much down here at the bottom. And actually what you would be looking at right here would be facing the bottom of the boat, and this would be facing the top. But I've just got it turned around. But I decided to go ahead and bring this out just a little bit more out here, and I actually increased the length, overall length, by 1 inch. This is the original plan was to go 20 inches, and I decided to make it 21 inches. And I don't know, it just, when I put them up there, they just look better. And sometimes you just got to go with your gut on stuff like that. But anyway, like I said, I'm back at work, and I'll get some more videos uploaded here pretty soon. And you know, thank you for watching. See you next segment. Okay, welcome back. Just going to kind of give you a quick explanation of what I'm doing here. And I've got to bond some little pieces in on the inside of these little pieces that go in front of the bow. I'm not quite sure what you would call those. I think you might call these cleats, but I've got to bond these to these little pieces that are going to go on the bow of the boat. And let me show you what I'm talking about. I've got to have a way to get these centered up and hold them in place while the thickened epoxy dries. So this is just kind of what I'm doing here. And that's just going to kind of go on there. I hope you can see that. It's going to go on there just like so. And that's going to help me to hold. Let me get that camera around there. So you can see what I'm doing. But that's going to help hold this piece here. Free up my hand. That's going to help hold this piece here right on the center line. I need this to be right on the center line of that keel beam. Hopefully you can see that. And I am getting a lot of reflection off of my screen. But I need for that piece to end up right on the center line of that keel beam, and the same goes for the one on the other side there too. And that's why I'm bonding those little cleats on the insides of these little plates here. So all I'm going to do is just use some tight bond here. It's waterproof glue, and show you what I'm talking about here. We'll just bond these in place. The angle is already cut to match this angle here. It's got kind of a little bit of a scarf right there, and I'm just going to use some tight bonds, waterproof glue. And then once that has set up, then I will bond these pieces in place with the thickened epoxy. And I'm probably going to have to come up with something out here on the outboard end also, where they attach to those stringers. And so when I get to that point, I'll get back to you. Catch you next segment. Okay, welcome back again. So I've got both of these pieces bonded. I've got the other side laid up on my table over here, but I bonded these little cleats 3/16 of an inch from this edge, and that's so that when this piece and the one for the opposite side come together, it'll form a nice little point right there in the center. And the reason for that is that keel beam is 3/8 inch plywood. It's 3/8 inch marine grade plywood, and 3/16 plus 3/16 equals 3/8. So once those are set up, and that will probably be tomorrow morning sometime. I'm not going to disturb these pieces. Just going to let that glue get good and dry, and after that, then I'll start working on getting those bonded to the keel beam and to the stringers. More to come. Okay, welcome back one more time, and I got both these pieces setting up, just waiting for the glue to dry. Got these little cleats bonded in. I've got to do something for the outboard end, like I said earlier, and after that, then we'll go ahead and we'll get these pieces bonded on. Let me find my hand. There we go. Okay. We'll get these pieces bonded on to the structure here, and once I get that done, then I will get back to you and kind of show you what's going on there and how I managed to figure out how to clamp everything in place, because as you can see, I'm going to have gravity working against me, and so I've got to figure out a way to clamp those pieces in place while the epoxy sets up. And thought about waiting until I flipped this boat over, and just did it while it was upside down. But I want to get those done now, because I feel like the more I can stabilize all of the structure, the better chance I have of having everything come out nice and parallel and even and square. And you know, especially, you know, when I get back here, I have not yet bonded in these ribs, but I want as much of the structure to be stabilized as much as possible. You know, what I'm trying to say is I want this structure to be as rigid as I can get it before I start bonding these in. So that's where I'm at, and if you've ever watched paint dry, watched grass grow, well, it's about as much fun as watching glue dry. I will get back with you next segment. Okay folks, welcome back, and I'm on my GoPro again, and the reason for that is it's kind of windy today, and I have a wind mic for my GoPro. I don't have one for the other camera that I normally use, and so yeah, we'll just shoot this on the GoPro. But as you can see here, I figured out a way to hold this little nose piece in place while the epoxy sets up. And what I did was, so I got a couple of pieces of aluminum, 2 pieces of aluminum here, and let me get this camera down in there where you can see those, and I just bent them to the same angle, one on each side, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to clamp one leg. I bent them into an L shape. I'm going to clamp one leg to this nose piece and clamp the other leg to the keel beam and to the stringer respectively, and hold those. That'll help hold those in place until the epoxy dries. And it's crude, but it is effective, and I will get back to you here as soon as we're done with that. Okay, so in that last segment I was showing you the little aluminum pieces I'm using to hold that nose piece in place while the epoxy sets up, but I had to take them back off and wrap them in wax paper, and the reason for that is I don't want these pieces right here to be permanently bonded to the boat. So I'll get them wrapped up in wax paper and get everything clamped back in place, and once I get these bonded, I'll get back to you. Okay, so there I have my aluminum pieces coated with the wax paper, like I said, so that they don't stick to the nose piece there. And as you can see, I left the aluminum brackets clamped on to the nose piece, and that's just so that I'll only have to wrestle with 2 clamps instead of 4 when I go to set this thing in place. And so all I have to do now is start mixing epoxy, and I will be back with you momentarily. Okay, I've got my epoxy resin mixed up. I'm going to wet down the bare wood before I put the thickening agent in and start making the thickened epoxy. But just want to give a little shout out to Total Boat. I've been using Total Boat's products on this build, and this is a 5-to-1 resin, and it's got these neat little calibrated pumps, and I really like it. It's worked out very well. So, you know, I have the base here, which is 5 parts, and the hardener, which is 1 part, but just one stroke of the pump gives me the 5 parts of the base, and then 1 stroke of the hardener pump that gives me 1 stroke of the or 1 part of the hardener, I should say, and it works out very well. So once again, shout out to Total Boat. Okay, so I've got these pieces wet down with the resin, getting ready to add the thickening agent, and same over here with the nose piece. I had to close the garage door down because of the wind. I don't want that cavessil blowing around. Like I mentioned in a previous video, you do not want that stuff in your lungs. I have my mask on, so I will get back to you here shortly. Okay, so now the right side is now bonded in place, and I got the thickened epoxy into as many little nooks and crannies as I could. When I get the clamps off and get those aluminum pieces out of the way, then I will finish doing the fillet seal. I just got to as much as I could. Was able to get a nice little fillet over here on this outboard side, and so that's going to hold quite well. So that's where we're at. I had a little bit of that thickened epoxy left over, and I have some screw holes on the stern that I need to fill in, so I'll go back there, get busy sanding, and try to minimize my waste, minimize, whatever. But anyway, I was going to try to keep my waste to a minimum on my materials. So I'm going to go back there and I'm going to sand, and I'm going to fill some screw holes. Well, okay folks, it is good to be back to working on the boat again, and it's even better that we're thawed out. I'm glad that the temperatures are coming back up, and I was actually able to get some of the work done on this nose piece here. You know, I've mentioned in past videos that I've got a temperature range I have to work within for the epoxy, and it finally warmed up enough today to where I could actually get out here and start bonding some pieces onto the boat. So right now we're kind of at the mercy of the epoxy, waiting for it to dry. I've got the second half of that nose piece to bond on tomorrow, but we'll just go ahead and let this stuff set up overnight, and we'll get back on that tomorrow. Tonight I wanted to read to you from the 10th chapter of John, and Jesus is speaking to a crowd of people, and I just want to pick up here at the 14th verse, and this is one of the passages that I've committed to memory. It's just one of those passages that speaks to me. But anyway, starting at the 14th verse of John chapter 10, Jesus said, "I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father." Now, as you probably know, Israel is located on the eastern side of the Mediterranean Sea, and due to its location, it was like a land bridge between Egypt and the rest of Africa on the south, and Asia Minor, I should say, and Mesopotamia on the north end. Now, Mesopotamia, of course, that would be modern day Iraq, Kuwait, and parts of Syria. Asia Minor, that's mostly modern day Turkey. And so there were several trade routes that ran through Israel at that time. It was kind of like a crossroads, but there were two major international trade routes that went through Israel. And by Jesus' time, those trade routes had extended into Greece and Italy and most of southern Europe. And that was, due to the Roman occupation. That means, of course, that there were a lot of people in Israel in Jesus' time who were not Jewish. There were a lot of foreign people, Gentiles, who would have been passing through Israel along one of the trade routes. And there were, of course, many Gentiles living in Israel at that time. Although, it should be noted that the population of Jerusalem itself was almost exclusively Jewish. But outside of Jerusalem, in the countryside, there were a lot of Gentile people living in Israel. But whenever Jesus preached, and especially in the countryside outside of Jerusalem, it's a certainty that there were Gentiles in the audience listening to him. And we know this is true because Jesus had an encounter with the Samaritan woman at the well. And there was the account of the Canaanite woman that's recorded in Matthew chapter 15 who begged Jesus to cast a demon out of her daughter. And then there were the 10 men with leprosy who were healed by Jesus. That's recorded in the 17th chapter of Luke's Gospel. And in that account, only one of those 10 men came back to Jesus to say thank you. And as it turned out, that one was a Gentile. So it's safe to say, yes, there were Gentiles among the people wherever Jesus preached. And Jesus was addressing Gentiles specifically in that passage from John chapter 10 that I just read here a few moments ago, where he said, I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. And that is to say, there are people who are followers and worshipers of Christ who are not Jewish. And Jesus was saying that Gentiles, that would be me, that would be you, that would be anyone who is not Jewish, will be brought into the flock, and he will be shepherd over all. And Jesus, he gave his life for all. He laid down his life. He took the punishment that we deserve for our sins, for everyone's sins. And the Bible says that Jesus Christ is knocking at the door of our hearts, and God doesn't want anyone to be lost. But one thing about God, he's not going to barge in. He's not going to force his way into your life. He's not going to kick the door in. But nonetheless, Jesus is knocking at the door. And I urge you, answer the door, answer the call, and let Jesus into your heart today. I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll get back to work on the boat tomorrow. And thankfully, like I said, the weather has improved now, and I'm ready to get back to work on this thing and start pushing forward on it. But in the meantime, behave, be blessed, and it is now time that I be gone. And again, thank you all for watching.